Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to use Adobe Illustrator. We'll be using some basic shape making tools for our vector drawing project, and this is going to be a demonstration that I want you to follow along with. So I will try my best to remember to prompt you guys during this video to follow along and do what I'm showing you to do. So you'll be doing this along with me. We're going to all make the same image together through this demonstration so that you can get an idea for the tools and how they work, and I know that you kind of have figured that out. And then once you have finished following along this video and you have the finished image that I've also made, then you will be able to create your own image for the shape design minor project. So follow along this demonstration first, do everything exactly the same thing that I do, and then once you finish that, you can make your own using the tools that we practiced in this video. So you'll start on Adobe Illustrator. AI is the symbol. You can get to that using your little Windows button here and find it along the edge somewhere around there. You're going to create a new document. And then Adobe Illustrator has some layouts kind of for you here, so you can pick whatever you want. I think a web 1920 by 1080 is perfectly fine. It doesn't really matter because you can always crop your canvas later depending on how big your drawing is, and this kind of allows you to start with a larger size so you know it's going to be high quality when you finish it and when you export it. So just go ahead and click that web large template, and then my screen cuts this off for some reason. I'm not totally sure why, but this blue button down here is your create button, so click that. Okay, once Illustrator has loaded up, it's important that you have your workspace the way you want it to be. I'm not sure what loaded up for you guys. It really depends on whatever your default settings are, but it's good practice depending on what project you do to set up your workspace with the tools that you need. So I like the Window, Workspace. I like the Essentials Classic. That gives me that top bar and that sidebar, lots of different options, lots of things available. Like I said, depending on what you are working on, you might want a different workspace. Try out different ones once you kind of get an idea for the tools and you'll pick one out, but I like the Essentials Classic, so I would suggest you guys click that one for this demonstration because that way you'll be able to follow along with me. Once you've done that, your page should look like this. I'm going to go ahead and make my window full screen as well because I think that gives me a little bit more room down here. So I'm going to do that by clicking View and then Screen Mode and then Full Screen with Menu Bar. That gives me the File Edit Object bar at the top too, so that's what I want. There we go. Just a little bit more room for myself. Okay, let's go ahead and get right into it. So like I said, you're following along with me. So if you have not gotten to this point yet, go ahead and pause the video and get to this point. Once you're there, we're going to start building our image. We're just going to be making an apple. It's a really simple image, so just follow along with me here. We're going to start by using shapes. So the key to vector drawing is that basically everything that comprises your image is made up of a shape that has a fill color and maybe a stroke color, depending on what you kind of style you're going for there. So you're going to be using the shapes to build your entire image. I don't want to see any brush tools. Just think about closed areas, closed shapes that you can fill with color, because that's really the best way to work in Illustrator. It kind of lets you do things the best. So this is your shape tool over here. Right now it's on rectangle. You can right click and choose whatever you want. We're going to start with ellipses and go ahead and draw a first circle. So I said we're making an apple. Apples are not perfectly symmetrical circles here, so I'm actually going to make two circles and I'm going to bring them together, and I'll show you how to do that. So start by just making two circles. You can use your select tool to move them, or shortcut is the letter V, so you can click V and then move it, transform it, however you want. Like I said, apples kind of have this little amorphous shape, so something like that is fine. Okay, right now these are all in my layer 1 folder over here. So if I drop that down, this is what's happening in my layer 1, which is great. I want that to be layer 1. I can go ahead and rename that because I want to keep myself organized. So it's good to kind of keep your layers organized, make sure everything is in folders, everything is separated the way you want it to, especially if you have a really complicated image. It's good to have things separated out like body, face, hands, whatever. This will be very helpful for you in your actual project that you'll be doing for this project. So I've got that layer named. My ellipses are in here. Right now, these are two separate circles. What I want to do is turn them into one shape. So I actually just want this outline as a new shape. And in order to do that, I'm going to select both of them. I'm going to click this Shape Builder tool. And what that does is it shows me these areas and this little plus button, and that means I'm going to combine those. So if I just like draw a line in between all of them, I have now merged those separate shapes, and now that is one shape, which is great. That's what I want. So I'm going to click back to my selection tool using the letter V, and then I'm going to fill this with an apple color. Now this panel here is where all your colors are. You can choose whichever one makes the most sense to you. This one has like an RGB spectrum. This one has some swatches that are already picked out for you. That one is based on the color that's currently selected, different shades and tints that could work with that color. So I'm going to start with this and just pick like a nice red color. Right now, my apple shape has a very thin black stroke to it. You can tell because this empty rectangle here is your stroke color, and then this full rectangle is your fill color. So your stroke color just means like the outline. I don't want my apple to have a stroke. It depends on, you know, your style and what you want to go for. Let's say you want your stroke to be like really thick. That could be a style. I have to select it first. Select it and then make it thick. That could be a style that you like for your art. That's fine. I don't want a stroke at all, so I'm going to click that stroke, select my object, click the stroke, and I'm going to click this little box with a red bar in it, and that means it doesn't have a stroke at all. So it's just the fill color, no outline. And that's what I want. So there's my apple body. Now I'm going to go ahead and make a stem, but I know that I want my stem to be in a different folder layer than this. I'm going to add a new layer here. My stem layer. Make sure that is selected, and then I can build my stem. I'm going to make it basically like a triangle. So go back to my shape tool, right click, and a triangle is a type of polygon. In order to use the Polygon tool, you have to double click it, and then this little menu will pop up, and you choose how many sides you want your polygon to have. So I just want a triangle, which is 3 sides. Once you've done that, it'll auto load in that triangle, but now, from now on that I have 3 selected, every time I draw, it's going to be a triangle. Okay, I don't need those. So I'm just going to use this one triangle, and I'm going to transform it into more of a stem shape. Transform. Yep. Kind of like a longer triangle there. Line it up. A little taller. Say that's good. And then I want this one to be brown, so I can pick something here. Oh, I'm on my stroke. I don't want it to have a stroke, so take that away. Make sure fill is selected. Then I can pick a brown over here. Once you've got a color generally picked out, I also like to double click this. I find this menu a little easier, so this is based on the color that's currently selected, and then you can make it lighter or darker, and I find that a little easier to pick a specific color for myself. So that's my brown. Now I'm going to make the leaf. Zoom in a little bit using the letter Z, or the zoom tool, which is over here somewhere. There it is. Okay. Now there's a few different ways you can make the leaf for your apple, which is what I'm doing. Back to my select tool, letter V. I think a leaf could be like a circle with 2 points. It could be like an easy geometric shape, or you could try to make like your own unique shape for the leaf if you want. It depends. We're going to try and use these tools, so I want you to try and make like an interesting kind of wavy, unique leaf shape. You can use either the pen tool or the curvature tool. Technically, they both do the same thing. They just have a little bit different maneuvering to it. So let me show you how they both work. Let's start with the pen tool. You could use your tablet for this if you want to. You don't have to. Just depends on preferences. You'll figure it out as you do the project. So if I click once, it's going to start by making myself a point. Okay. If I click and hold, it's going to make me a curve. So I'm going to curve a little up, and then I'm going to click and hold again, make another curve, hold down. Then I'm just going to plain click. It'll make another point. Click and hold for a curve, click and hold for a curve, and then just plain click back at the beginning for another point. So that's my leaf shape. It's not beautiful. So I'm actually going to have that selected and then switch to the curvature tool here. And that shows me all of the points that the curves are currently making, so I can edit those by moving them and make it more kind of what I was intending at the beginning. You can also add points with the curvature tool, so if you need more of a curve, you can add that along the lines there. That's about closer to what I was thinking about. And then I can make it green, right? So that's the pen tool. Let me go ahead and delete that. The curvature tool is basically the same thing, except instead of clicking and holding, it's basically a click or a double click. So if I click once, it'll be a curve. And if I click twice, it'll be a point. So I'm going to start with just plain click, one click for a curve, one click for a curve. I'm going to double click to make a point, and then one click for a curve, one click for a curve, and then back to the beginning, but I'm going to double click because I want that to be a point as well. And then once you're on the curvature tool, you can, again, edit those and add a new one if you want. It doesn't matter what you do. So that is the curvature tool and the pen tool. Again, they do the same thing. You can choose whichever one you want, whatever makes sense to you. Another thing you could do using those tools as well, let's say I spawn in a polygon, which I've already got a triangle selected, so I'm going to make a triangle. And I'm going to start kind of making it a little longer, sort of like a leaf, thinking about a leaf here. This little circle towards the edge here will allow me to curve the edges of my shape. And this works for polygons, it works for rectangles. So if you want a curved geometric shape, you can do that. So I'm going to curve those a lot, actually, and try and make sort of a teardrop shape. So starting there, I've curved all of those away. I like this base for my leaf, but I want this to be a point. So I've got this selected. I'm going to switch back to my curvature tool. And instead of that being a curve, I can double click and change it into a point. Double click. There we go. And now I've got this teardrop shape. So lots of different ways you could go about this. It's important to just kind of know what tools are available to you. So go ahead and make your leaf using whatever method you want. Try the triangle, try the curvature tool, try the pen tool, doesn't matter. Pick one that you like and make your leaf. And then you'll attach it here. Okay, so regardless of what tool you used for your leaf, I want you to use either the curvature tool or the pen tool for this little shadow that I'm going to make at the top of the apple here. And that's part of my apple body, so I'm going to click that layer. Again, it doesn't matter. I'll use the curvature tool. Just like a little crescent. Okay, so use the pen tool or the curvature tool. Make yourself a little crescent down there. It's like a top of the apple sort of shadow. And then I want this to be a darker version of this red color to make an interesting shadow there. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to use my eyedropper tool, which we've used before. Eyedropper tool is there, or you can press the letter I. I'm going to select the fill of my apple, and that will make that the same color. Then I'm going to go over here and click this again. And I can just make it a darker version of that exact same color. And that's a great way to get shadows. Once you have selected your colors and you figured out your shadows and stuff like that, when you're working on a more extreme project, it's really, really great to have swatches all figured out. So once you have your colors basically picked out, save them as swatches, and then you can access them a lot more easily throughout the entire project. So I want to save this shadow color as a swatch. And in order to do that, I'm going to go to my swatch panel here, swatches. This is pretty small, so I'm going to enlarge it so you can see what I'm talking about here. These are some already predetermined swatches for you. These are folders. So it's also great, again, if you have a large, complicated project to organize your swatches in folders. Like these are the colors I used on the face. These are the colors I used on the clothes. And that way you have those accessible all the time and you don't have to use the eyedropper tool a bunch, especially if you have little itty bitty colors that are harder to access. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder. And this is going to be my Apple folder because I'm just working on an Apple today. And it already auto loads in that swatch to my Apple folder. So let me click the body, and I want to add this color to my Apple folder as well. So make sure I'm selected there, and then I'm going to click New Swatch. And I'll name it my Apple body color. So now I've got the shadow and the body there. And this one showed up because I titled it. This one I didn't end up titling, so I can just, oh, don't want that to happen. If I want to title this swatch, I can go here and rename it here. Shadow. Cool. So that's the swatch panel. Again, that's super, super helpful if you have a more intense project. I won't be using it anymore for this demonstration, but I just wanted to show you what that looks like. So go ahead and add at least the apple body and the apple shadow to your swatch panel here. Make yourself a folder. Go through that process. You don't have to use it past that, but just make sure you know how to do that. So do that at least once. Okay, basic format of the apple is basically finished. For your shape design minor project, you have to have shadows in your design. So this would be an example of a drawing without any shadows at all. Every part of the drawing is just one solid color. So I want to add some shadows, and again, you're thinking just solid shapes. You're not using the brush tool or anything like that. I want to create a shadow that is perfectly this curve of this side of the apple. Imagine my light source is kind of like over here. So in order to do that, I'm actually going to zoom out a little bit so you can see my space better. I'm going to use that shape builder tool again. I'm going to select the body of my apple. I'm going to copy it by clicking Control C, and then I'm going to paste it twice. So Control V, and then I have two. What I'm going to do is imagine this is my shadow, and I only want this curve to show up. I'm going to take the second one. Somehow I spawned 3. Get rid of that. Take the second one and line it up so that that curve is exactly what I want along the left side of the apple there. Shape builder tool again, just select these two. Make sure these are the only ones that are selected. Go to my shape builder tool, and I don't want to merge these shapes together. What I want to do is get rid of this part and this part. So I'm going to hold the Alt button, and that turns that plus into a minus. And then I'm going to click the spaces that I don't want anymore. And that leaves me just with that curve. And then I'm just going to line it back up on top of my apple. And then same thing before. I've got my swatch already ready, so I can just click that and make that shadow. So go ahead and do that, and also do it for the stem and the leaves. So just click, copy, paste, paste. Drag it out away from anything else. You don't want it touching anything else when you're using the shape builder tool, otherwise you'll be joining other shapes that you don't want. Hold Alt. And then once I have this selected, I can just double click over here and make it darker. That's my shadow. If you ever have trouble lining things up, it helps to zoom in. That gives you a little bit more space to work with your mouse. There we go. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I've got my shape, I've got my shadows. It's all made with simple shapes and vector drawing strategies and stuff. That's basically all the tools I wanted to show you for today. I want my leaf to be on top of the stem, so remember, in order to reorder things, you just have to drag it. So I need the base of my leaf on top. And that's it. So once you've used the pen tool, the curvature tool, different shape tools, you've played around with that, you've played around with your swatches, this should really be all you need to know to do your shape design project. So you can just think of whatever imagery you want and create your own shape design. Remember, you're not doing an apple, you're doing something else. I'll show you an example. And then once you have finished that shape design, you're going to export it and then turn it into me for your minor project. So I'll show you how to export this apple, because that's what I have on my screen right now, but you will not be exporting the apple. You'll be exporting whatever unique design you choose to do for the project. So when you're done with that, you'll click File, Export, Export As, and I suggest you do a PNG, because that keeps a transparent background around your image. If your artboard, meaning like the canvas side, is cropped perfectly to your image, you could use your artboard. I don't need it. I just want it to grab where there's actually drawing on my picture, so I'm not going to click that. PNG, title it your name, please. Helps me. And then this little window will pop up with your PNG options. You can choose what kind of resolution you want. A great resolution is 300 pixels per inch, and that's fine for me. You want a transparent background because you didn't put any drawing in your background, so there's no reason for you to have a white block behind your image. unless for some reason you really want that. It doesn't really matter for this project, but I prefer the backgrounds to be transparent. That way I can put them on top of different colored backgrounds later if I want to. So PNG, decide whether you want your transparent background or whether you want a block of color behind it. Say okay, and that's it. So that is now saved as a PNG file. So let me exit out of my full screen here. For your minor project, you will have to turn in that PNG that you just exported. Please also turn in the Illustrator file so that I can see your layers and kind of how you did things. So again, not with the apple, but with your unique shape design project, you're also just going to file save on your computer and make sure it's an AI file. And again, you can title it your name or whatever. So save it as an AI file and there. On Google Classroom, you will turn in the Illustrator file and also the finished PNG. So let me show you real quick my example here that I did. Again, I had that transparent background. I just built the entire image out of shapes. I included shadows throughout the whole image. A great rule for shadows is just pick a direction for your light source. So I imagined that the light is coming from over here, meaning the shadows were going to be on this side of the drawing. So you have to do shadows. Find out a way to do it somehow in your drawing somewhere, and then that can be it. So you can do whatever you want, whatever imagery you want. You can always look up ideas on the internet. Don't copy anyone else's. Come up with something on your own. But you just have to think about how to break down an image into shapes, and that's going to be the best way for you to be prepared for what this project is going to be. So now that you're done with the demonstration, you can go ahead and get on with your actual shape design minor project.